And when you talk about the size of these deliveries, it's insanity. And so we are seeing structural deficits in silver again, which will be the fourth year in a row. And yet the price is being capped, as that capping is incentivizing big players to draw down to the point of 19 million ounces in one day.
To stay ahead of the game and gain valuable insights into market trends, financial strategies, and expert analysis, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll get real-time updates on key financial news and trends that could impact your investments. Join our growing community of informed investors and ensure you're always in the know with the best content on market dynamics and investment tips. Hit that subscribe button now and join the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's been massive. I mean, we've talked a lot about, for example, that the first 6 months of this year, Dunnigan, was the most gold that the central banks have ever bought in a 6-month period, the first 6 months of a year, only surpassing the last 6 months. And of course, the largest buyer over the first 6 months has been Turkey, something I hope to talk with you about here in a few minutes as well. But when we talk about deliveries off of COMEX, we don't know who's taking all of these deliveries. We assume that in some cases they're commercial banks or maybe sovereign wealth funds or whomever it is. And I have often, or for a long time now, I have been saying that it is the suppression of the Western paper market, where as much as 200 million ounces of gold is traded per day, which is just absolutely ridiculous, because the LBMA says, 20 million ounces or so we trade every day, but that's 10 times understated because we only post the final settlement numbers. 200 million ounces a day and upwards ends of almost 3 billion ounces of silver, 3.5 times annual global mine supply, is traded in London. It is the suppression of the paper markets where 90% or more of those contracts are paper settled promises, not metal deliveries, but paper settlement, that is creating the distortions in the price and is keeping and has kept a lid on the price, and the rehypothecation that we see on COMEX, which has kept a lid on the price. And maybe that's why we see all of the countries repatriating their gold, taking it away from the Bank of England and the New York Fed, which was typically the access points for COMEX and the LBMA. And so that's already, we understand that. And much like the roll of toilet paper that I've talked about that spins faster and faster and faster, and you begin to see the cardboard, so too has been some of the deliveries we've seen recently. Gold delivered on the August contract so far is about 30% of the registered category, and that's the highest delivery in 4.5 years. Now, the registered category are the bars that back the contracts that are available for delivery. And when you talk about how big it was, I mean, you have to put it in numbers form to really understand. It was 4,142 contracts. Now, if we take 4,142 contracts in one day delivered, multiply that times 100, which is how many ounces are in a contract, obviously that's 414,200 ounces, and let's just call it times $2,500. That's $1,035,500,000. Who's got that kind of money to take possession of $1 billion worth of gold? And that's just in one day. But it's being drawn down from London as well, where in the second quarter, 330 tons or 10.6 million ounces were drawn down. Take 10.6 million and multiply times 2,500, and you're up in stratosphere land. And so you have all of these deliveries in gold, I'll talk about silver next, that are coming off of the exchanges because of the stupidity of the Western system that allows these commercial banks to suppress the price. And maybe they're being told from above. But the thing of it is that when these exchanges were established, long before the countries standing for delivery were coordinated, motivated, sophisticated, and wealthy, they offered a delivery mechanism, which usually never was activated or used. 1% or less of contracts in COMEX would stand for delivery, and now the number's much more. But let's talk about silver, which is crazy, because just a couple of days ago, which would, I believe, be the September contract, we saw 3,830 silver contracts stand for delivery at 5,000 ounces apiece. That's 19,150,000 ounces of silver that were delivered just a couple of days ago. And when you talk about the size of these deliveries, it's insanity. And so we are seeing structural deficits in silver again, which will be the fourth year in a row. And yet the price is being capped, as that capping is incentivizing big players to draw down to the point of 19 million ounces in one day. Now, it's not all one player, but suffice it to say, for an exchange like the COMEX, who had 19 million ounces delivered on the first day of the September contract, to see that happen when no one really ever stood for delivery, it should be very, very, very eye-opening. And to see the same kind of thing on gold should be very, very, very eye-opening. It is the draining of the exchanges that people in the West are ignoring. And this goes right into Zoltan Pozar's belief that he or she who has the commodities wins. So if I admire anything about the way that these countries, and I don't know how much of it is adversarial countries and sovereign wealth funds standing for delivery, and how much is the people in the know here, which I'm sure is a lot. But one thing I do admire about those who are standing for delivery and draining the exchanges is the methodical way in which they're doing it. And they're not doing too much to create Sunday evening news fodder. I mean, heaven forbid they ever talk about gold or gold being drained off of COMEX on the evening news or on Fox or CNBC or whatever, but enough to where it just glides on by, and month after month after month after month, we now see statements from the LBMA saying that they have the lowest amount of silver that they've had since they started keeping records in a 140-year-old exchange. Where's it all going? It's the stupidity of the way we price things, which is then incentivizing people to activate that frequently never or that rarely used clause of standing for delivery that is now becoming a release valve, if you will, and just plundering and draining the exchanges at our expense. Yeah, well, we know from the meeting in Novograd a few weeks ago that 59 countries have formally applied, and we don't know which ones they are. We have some ideas. But one thing that did just get publicized on Monday, Bloomberg said that Turkey has formally asked to join BRICS and would be the first NATO member to request membership in the BRICS bloc. Think about that for a moment. And this is a very, very big deal. In fact, I was talking with someone who is a former high-ranking military advisor who I've talked with at length before, and I asked him, do you think Turkey stays in NATO? And he said, no, I don't think so. And now this is supposition, but they asked to join the European Union and they were rejected. And so I think they have doubled down. They're the largest purchaser of gold this year. And in our previous interviews, we've talked about the role of gold in the BRICS, which is the only other tier one asset in the world, and the possibility, at least agreed in principle, of the new unit settlement currency, which will be 40% gold backed, held within the borders of the countries that possess the gold to make the new unit token. And so you see Turkey being the largest producer or the largest accumulator of gold this year, formally requesting admittance into BRICS as a NATO member. Sides are being drawn. Sides are being chosen. And, you know, you got guys like Jim Willey who admittingly, he will say things that I've never heard before. And sometimes they sound outlandish and very often they come true. So I'm not disparaging his sources. But a lot of the sources that he gets, I don't know where he gets some of the info he gets, but some of it's pretty amazing. And he's said things before, like Japan and countries like Australia have interests in joining the BRICS. Now, we don't know that to be official. Haven't heard about it, but there will come a point, then again, where sides must be chosen, and this is one of them, a NATO alliance member, a Western-friendly member. And you just saw two naval sailors were just, almost abducted in broad daylight in Turkey yesterday. It's a country that is not maybe as Western friendly as we would like to think, yet they are part of NATO. And for them to choose sides and openly apply to BRICS while massively accumulating gold will tell you, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. They are dropping the crumbs at your feet. I think they are tired of the West. When the European Union turned them down, they would rather stand on their own 2 feet and join a union like the BRICS that is not only cooperative rather than coercive, but that provides them opportunities not found in the Western alliances. So it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. We don't know if they've been approved or anything along those lines, just that they have formally applied. And that is somewhat of the first time we've seen a Western ally, a NATO member, throw their hat in the ring, and where that goes and who it incentivizes to also be courageous enough to throw their hat into the ring from here, only time will tell. But as the Chinese curse goes, we are certainly living in interesting times, and this is one of the more interesting developments we've seen BRICS related in quite some time. Yeah, so 2024 will be another deficit, and they imagine 215 million ounce shortfall, second largest in more than 20 years, fourth year in a row of a structural deficit. Of course, the supply demand numbers do not put in military usage, and that's a big deal for me. When we go back to the congressional hearings, Senate hearings, subcommittee hearings in the 40s that I've talked about, I've shown you, that talk about needing 200 million ounces of silver per year in the 40s. Well, we've talked at length about the need for silver in high-tech weaponry, and those supply-demand numbers that the Silver Institute publishes, right or wrong, will tell you there's a 215 million ounce deficit on the horizon for this year, the fourth year in a row. But they don't mention anything about military. So my guess is those numbers are much, much higher. And this is why you have 8 brain-dead banks holding the price of silver down. All right, now going to India, it was just reported August 23rd that India's silver imports are on course to nearly double this year. And they're going to double to, the country has already bought 2,295 tons compared to only 673. This was in February alone. In February, 1 month. And they published these numbers months after. In 1 month, they bought 2,295 tons of gold in February. And that's up from 637 tons in January. So you're talking a 260% increase month over month. That's massive amount of silver. Putting that in perspective, okay? That amount of silver that they bought in 1 month is 70 million ounces more in silver than the U.S. Mint made in silver eagle coins over the past 3 years combined. So you got India importing more silver in 1 month than the U.S. Mint has made in eagles in 3 years combined. Think about that for a moment. They are estimating that upwards ends of 7,000 tons will be imported this year.